So before we jump into this vlog, I want to have a little quick disclaimer. I love Gloomy 1. I'm a fan of Jaws. I know I'm going to love Gloomy 2. Gloomhaven has occupied a very, very special place, not only in my gaming collection, but also given the scope, given the love, given the passion, the design genius of the game has given me countless hours, both solo and playing with my friends. The only thing that has come close just on raw hours has been Kingdom Death Monster and Dark Souls, the board game. And it's not really fair to say Dark Souls, the board game, simply because the mechanics, they're not equal. But just as a solo experience and being a Dark Souls fanatic, I tend to log a lot of plays. Yes, I keep all of my hours logged, both solo and with a group, in a massive Excel spreadsheet. And it gets more and more frightening as the years go by looking at this sheet, because these are real-time life hours. But you cannot put a price on a good time, especially if it's with your friends. Jumping into the subject. So that was the disclaimer before getting off topic a little bit too much. The Gloomhaven killer. Obviously, you're looking at Gloomhaven, and you realize that the board gaming market, whether it's traditional distribution or Kickstarter distribution, which more and more as time goes by, that line gets blurred. I mean, Kickstarter is just a way to get all the money up front, an interest-free loan, make the game, deliver it or not, whenever you want. Different model, but very, very similar. But a lot of companies are looking, a lot of players are looking hungry as the board gaming community expands and expands and expands, and they see the massive success at Gloomhaven, which to date has not been replicated. So in some secret hideout lair, somebody's looking and saying, we've got to come up with a Gloomhaven killer. We've got to slay this beast and take back control of the market, especially if you've been some established companies that may or may not have been riding on the idea. We've got a very popular, effective dungeon crawler, and we're being challenged. We're being challenged from that perspective. On a side note, looking at BGG, other sites, and I'm an enthusiast of Gloomhaven and I'm an enthusiast of Descent, looking at them for the longest time, you would see recommendations, looking for dungeon crawler, top 5 dungeon crawlers, 2018, 2019, 2020. Descent would be up there. The mechanics are solid. The components are fantastic. Lots of expansions, solo play, campaign play. It's good in multiple areas. And on a side note, up on my channel here in the Board Gaming Archive playlist, I've examined Descent 2nd edition and looked at some ideas of why I think it really, really excels. But now you kind of unofficially run that same look, and what you begin to see, top 5 dungeon crawlers, Gloomhaven's there. This is going back. Also, we saw this a number of years ago. Games Workshop, Warhammer 40,000 dominated everything. Just dominating everything. Games Workshop, absolute contempt for its customer base. Prices going up and up. The masses completely brainwashed, and I count myself in that. I mean, I love Warhammer 40K. We've got 9th edition. But you look at that madness as an outsider, and you're like, all of these people lining up to pay $65 for like one figure, or dropping $100 for a space tank. Like, what the heck is going on? But what you saw was X-Wing miniatures, Fantasy Flight, about 5 or 6 years back, starting to take over. X-Wings on the map, top 3, top 2. And then at one point with that Zenith, X-Wing miniatures beat out 40K. Games Workshop recovered that very, very quickly. So what I'm wondering is, we've seen the leak for Descent 3rd edition, and it's a big box. There's a lot that's going to be packed into there. And I think the idea, I think a lot of companies are looking, all of a sudden they're remembering, hey, dungeon crawlers are popular. Well, yeah, dungeon crawlers are popular. And this is coming from a guy that loves it, because we love role-playing games. We love going into dungeons, getting loot, leveling up, slaying monsters, having a boss encounter. And imagine if we could have that the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail. Can we have that RPG experience without the rules and the clutter and the preparation of an RPG. The only thing that I know that does that to date is Magic Realm. But that's a completely different beast in itself. But Gloomhaven is up there. So I think a lot of people are looking, a lot of companies are looking. Gloomhaven's number one, and everyone wants the number one spot, and they're going to kind of clone it, and they're going to kind of look at it. Will Descent 3rd Edition be that? Now, I will say what Gloomhaven has going for it is the genius to change and pivot in a moment's notice. It's like a fighting style that switches up. And the things that make Gloomhaven great are also somewhat of a detraction from it. But things are pivoting very, very fast. A perfect example. A massive stack of missions, different missions that you can play and unlock and discover before we even get into unlocking character classes. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers. If you're playing Gloomy or thinking about jumping into Gloomy, much of it is discovery, self-discovery yourself. But in assembling the dungeons, and they're not large, but there is some setup involved, that takes up some time. Now, Descent 1st Edition, the dungeons were very, very big. And I enjoyed them. And you laid them out as you explored. It took a long time to set these dungeons up. That cut into the game. Descent 2nd Edition was like, bam, re-imaged. Now the dungeons are smaller. They're more bite-sized. They set up very fast. Gloomhaven, very big. But now with this idea of adventure books that flip open and lay out, that's genius. That's amazing. I expect that to be copied by everybody moving down the pipeline with Discovery. That's huge. But what that has shown me is that Gloomhaven has the threat of not only having a successful game and amazing rules and an amazing experience, the places where it gets a little clunky or breaks down a little bit, that's going to evolve. That's going to change. Will Descent 3rd Edition be the Gloomhaven killer? Or, and I'm interested to see your opinion in the comments, do you think Gloomhaven's going to be king for a while? Especially since we have that 1-2 knockout punch plus the submission of Gloomy 1, Jaws, and soon to be, I think it's 2021? And it's probably a pretty solid delivery schedule of Gloomy 2. That leaves a very, very narrow window for Descent 3rd Edition or other aspects to establish and kind of retake that position.